Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. Website, of course, thisweekinamerica.us. Back with us on the program is author Stephen Schochet. He's a professional tour guide in Hollywood. Years ago, began collecting little-known humorous anecdotes to tell his customers. His new book is Hollywood Stories, short, entertaining anecdotes about the stars and legends of the movies. He's back with us on the program. His website is hollywoodstories.com. You, of course, can link onto our website and get all the information. Get in touch with Steve. He's also got a couple of audiobooks out there as well. Steve, welcome to the program. Having you back to talk about Star Trek. Big time for Trekkies here.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Yeah, it's an exciting, somewhat controversial time since not everybody is enamored with the new movie Star Trek Into Darkness, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, you hear so many people, and it's one of those where, I liked it, and others I wasn't quite real sure. So there is some controversy with it. Let's start off by talking about J.J. Abrams. What were some of his goals in trying to reboot the famous franchise?
Well, he's not a Star Trek fan. He was a Star Wars fan, and he worked with people, some of them who were avid Star Trek fans, some of them weren't. And so he wanted to do something that would please everybody in his group and give it sort of a Star Wars sensibility as far as having the action and the pace be much greater than Star Trek, which is interpreted to be a little bit more cerebral. And the other thing was to take the Star Trek universe as we have known it and sort of get rid of that with an explanation so that Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock would not be, and the other characters would not be locked in to the same fates or same destinies that they had on the earlier show. And the way he did that was take Leonard Nimoy as an older Mr. Spock who travels back in time and changes history and is somewhat of a Obi-Wan Kenobi-like character.
It's interesting. This goes back about 50 years, and when you think about it, it's like, wow, I can remember when this first broke, and it certainly doesn't seem like 50 years ago. Stephen Schochet is our guest on the program. His book is Tales of Hollywood and Hollywood Stories, short, entertaining anecdotes about the stars and legends of the movies. I was giving you one of the names of his audiobooks. He has 2 audiobooks out there, and his website is hollywoodstories.com. We're talking specifically on the program today about Star Trek Into Darkness. Steve, you got too many things going. It gets confusing, but go to Steve's website and get all the information, hollywoodstories.com, a fascinating website. Now, what exactly happened? You heard all sorts of stories when the new actors met the still living actors from the 1960s TV series.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting situation with all those. You had John Cho write a letter to George Takei, and George Takei agreed to have dinner with him and give him advice and approval. And, of course, Mr. Sulu, not the most well-developed character on the show. I mean, the number one thing we knew about him on the show was that he liked fencing. But George Takei tried to give advice on how to play the character, and they got along great. Then you had Zoe Zidania afraid to meet Nichelle Nichols and wouldn't meet with her. And so J.J. Abrams invited her to the set when Zoe Zidania had a day off, and then he had Zoe Zidania come in and arrange for this surprise get-together, and then they started talking, and Zoe Zidania expressed regret that she hadn't talked to Nichelle Nichols about Lieutenant Uhura before she started her performance. But I think they got along famously after that. And then you had Walter Koenig getting along great with Anton Yelchin as Mr. Chekhov. He told him, make the character your own. Anton Yelchin really thought Chekhov was kind of a ridiculous character on the TV show. See, the reason Chekhov was originally brought in was because of the success of the Monkees, because they wanted a Davy Jones sort of knockoff character with that wig he was wearing at the time of the show. And Anton Yelchin thought that Chekhov would say ridiculous things about, being the emperor of Russia and things like that. So he obviously it's written a little bit differently. He tried to make it his own character. And Walter Koenig, he admitted that, he can get neurotic sometimes, and he was worried about watching another actor play the character in the movie. But when he went to the movie, he said he really enjoyed it and really complimented Anton Yelchin's performance. And then, of course, Leonard Nimoy and Zachary Quinto got to work together, and Leonard Nimoy had approval of who would play young Mr. Spock in the last movie, the one in 2009. And I think Leonard Nimoy tried to be guidance, but not too much advice. Telling Zachary Quinto what he went through at the time he was playing Mr. Spock. I'll just tell you a quick story. The first day Leonard Nimoy showed up at work on Star Trek. Actually, it was the second pilot episode. He first was working with DeForest Kelley, and they went out to lunch. And Leonard Nimoy expressed real nervousness, and he was in the ears, the Spock ears, and he said, "DeForest, I don't know about this job. I mean, these ears might ruin my career. I mean, I feel like a rabbit. I don't know what to do." And DeForest Kelley picked up a carrot and said, "Well, if you feel like a rabbit, why don't you eat this?" And Leonard Nimoy at the time had no sense of humor about it whatsoever. He was deadly serious about Mr. Spock, and I think he was trying to convey those feelings to Zachary Quinto all those years later.
Well,
and then. Oh, go ahead.
I just going to say, as he was counting off 19 million, 20 million, 21 million, suddenly he had a little more sense of humor about the character. There's so much more to talk about. Stephen is going to be back with us on the program because we got a lot more to talk about in Star Trek Into Darkness, the new movie. It's fascinating to find out because you've got that over around 50 years, and you've got that continuity as you're changing and transitioning from one group of creative people and artists into another. Stephen will be back with us. His book is a fascinating one. It's called Hollywood Stories, Short, Entertaining Anecdotes About the Stars and Legends of the Movies. It's available all across the country. Information at his website, HollywoodStories.com. And, of course, you can link on and get all the information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.